I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, and we'd like to also welcome Dr. Scott Perry. Excuse me, Jeff Perry.
Jeff Perry.
I apologize.
Mr. Griffith, I've been called a lot worse, so that
That's as bad as me as calling Dr. Green here. Dr. Green. Anyway, we hope you had a good day today.
You need to be a little kinder in your life.
We hope you had a good day and were treated well.
we have been treated extremely well.
How's your day gone so far?
It has been an exceptional day. This district is full of very dedicated and committed educators, and so it's just been a great day. And I've had some wonderful hosts being with me, and so they've taken real good care of me. So
Okay. Well, don't, Mr. Kenner's, don't take that as a rule. He's an exception.
No wrecks or anything.
No wrecks or anything. I heard you about got him killed on a Cracker Barrel across the parking lot.
we get hit by one car, and then everybody thinks.
Everybody thinks it's bad, just one car.
Exactly.
We've all read your resume, quite impressive. Is there anything you'd like us to tell us that's not on your resume? Anything?
Well, I certainly think that some of the experiences I've had would lend to make me a good superintendent, a district officer here. And so with the resume, in the formal education piece, I did earn a master's degree from Virginia Tech and a doctorate degree. As I became an elementary principal, then felt like I really needed to go back and work on that elementary background, so I went back and earned a master's of reading degree also to help us with the elementary school. I've had experience at about every different level, so I've been at an elementary school, been at a middle school and a high school. I've coached, I've taught, I've been at the central office, I've been a superintendent, been a division superintendent for about 13 years now. I've been in Colorado for 7 of those years, which was a great experience. And then I came back to Virginia and was a superintendent in Wise County for about 7 years. During that time, we had a lot of academic success. I feel that we were able to take some school division there, and we were rated about in the 50th out of 132 school divisions, and we were able to do some things academically and curriculum-wise that enabled us. When I left, we were ranked 4th in the entire state. And then when I went to Wythe County, again, at one point in time, we were ranked 118th in Wythe County, and this year we were ranked number 10th. So feel real good about that. We've been able to do several different things. We created a regional curriculum program now that's being used by over a quarter of the school divisions in Virginia, which I thought was a big accomplishment there, that we've got some of the best teachers in Region 7, develop lesson plans and all the stuff that's needed to implement the curriculum. Put all that online, and then now school divisions across the entire state can use that as they come to participate. Recently, we are just on, yesterday, we actually had a coalition meeting that we had over 60 school divisions come to Wythe County, and we developed a small rural school coalition that helped us increase our political voice, because one of the things that we struggle with is sometimes our political representation in Richmond is not very strong because we are so small. And by getting our school divisions together, that increases our political voice and enables us to be able to influence legislation and budget issues a little bit more. So that was another pretty big accomplishment that we had with that. So there's several other things in that, but if there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those things. Yes, sir.
I do a couple of help with the script adjectives. The division superintendent, explain it. In Tennessee, we have superintendents.
Yeah, actually, those terms are synonymous, that division superintendent, district superintendent, and then directors of schools. I think Tennessee had a statutory change that you actually now call them, I thought was directors of schools.
That's what I was going to
So,
say, it's director of schools.
Yeah, but at one point in time, it was superintendents. So
Yes.
as those names change, all of those are similar. So the chief executive officer, the division superintendent, district superintendent, director of schools, all of
Who do
those
you
are
answer to in Virginia?
school boards. So it's a school board, and then it's me, and then the hierarchy organizational chart all flows down from me. So I'm the chief.
Division's like the county here.
Correct. It would be that we're a county system, and so Wythe County is the entire county, and then I'm superintendent over the whole county. So
How do you think your philosophy of education aligns with our district or our county?
As I've talked to several people, it appears that this is a very student-friendly school division or school district. And it seems like the people are highly committed to students. So for me, on my end, I've got in this field because I care a lot about students. And I've shared this story with a lot of individuals, is that as I was growing up, my mom had 4 kids. My mom dropped out of school when she was in 6th grade, and my sister dropped out when she was in 8th grade. And my mom had to work 3 different jobs to just raise those children that she had, because our father left when I was pretty young. And during that time, we were actually raised by coaches and by teachers and by members of the church there that I attended. And so during that time, I had some educators who made a huge difference in my life. And as I mentioned to some folks earlier, actually when I was a senior in high school, I had a government teacher. She actually filled out my college application for me, and she actually paid for my first semester of college. And so during that entire time, I feel like I've always been in a profession where I'm trying to pay that back. And everything that we do and every decision that we make should be based on what's on the best interest of the child. And so that's how I try to live my professional life every day. And that's what I try to strive for, is that what can we do to take some students that don't have a chance in the world and give them that one chance to succeed. And so that's my philosophy in terms of being collaborative, being cooperative, trying to create an environment in which we can provide from the central office level those resources that are needed so that the schools can be successful.
That's great. That's a very similar story to my father. My father was the only one who went to college, didn't have a father. And anyway, what do you consider your major strengths that would bring you could bring to this position here in Hamlin County?
I think one of the things that I can bring is that my knowledge and expertise in curriculum instruction, I think, is a critical piece, that we've been able to have a great deal of academic success. And when I say we, I always mention everything with we. I try to do that because it's always a team effort, and that no single person can do any of this. But I think we have developed curriculum, and like I stated before, we've actually developed what is called the Comprehensive Instructional Program, or the CIP. And 4 years ago, we were having trouble with the curriculum because state standards were changed. And so,
Imagine that.
yeah, imagine that. And so what we had was that no school division had enough folks to recreate this curriculum. And so what we did is I led an effort to bring Region 7, which was a combination of about 19 school divisions. We came together and I got them to all put in some money, and we hired a curriculum director. And with that curriculum director, we identified the best teacher that we had in 3rd grade out of all 19 school districts. And with that 3rd grade teacher, we had that 3rd grade teacher develop lesson plans, assessments, PowerPoints, and all the resources that were needed to teach 3rd grade. She collected those, gave to us, and then we put on an online depository. We did the same thing for 4th grade, 5th grade, Algebra 1, physics, chemistry. So all that curriculum is placed on an online depository, and anybody that's in the program then can go on that depository and pull up those resources and use those. And then we update that every year by paying teachers that if you have a good idea, you can send us that idea, and then we put that suggestion on that. And so teachers now just have a wide range of materials and resources that they need on that. Also, the other part to that is the instructional piece. I think that I have worked a great deal in the instructional area, and we've been able to create an instructional program that actually gets on the level to how students can learn. Done quite a bit of work on brain-based learning, about how the brain operates, and then how can you learn, and then making sure that we actually teach in a compatible kind of way with how the brain operates and then how we teach. And so a lot of different things of that nature, and then plus making sure that we actually develop those relationships that make a huge difference. We found out that about 72% of why anybody does anything is because of a relationship. They either like you or they don't like you, and at-risk kids especially are only going to perform for you because they like you. You can't tell them that they're going to have a good SAT score or ACT score, they're going to go to Harvard. that doesn't really mean that much to a lot of at-risk kids. But what they will do is they'll do for you because you like you. And so that's one piece that we have to do. We've got to develop those relationships, especially with some of those kids that are struggling, so that they will perform.
Speaking of relationships, how do you compare the socioeconomics of Whitfield, Virginia, and you were at Wise before, compared to Hamlin County? How do they parallel or contrast?
It's pretty much the same. I think we had 60% free and reduced lunch in Wise County. So now when we say that we were fourth in the state, we did that with 60% free and reduced lunch. And so the next school division that was next to us was spending about $21,000 a student, and we were spending about $8,000 a student. And so we were not a very affluent and a very wealthy school division. We just had a lot of hardworking folks that were working in the coal mines and barely making it on that. And so in Wise County, about 60% free and reduced lunch, and in Whitfield, or in Wythe County, we have about 50% free and reduced lunch. So
So you didn't have.
very similar.
Everybody, North Virginia is very affluent, and a lot of the Beltway kids and families live in that area.
It is that there is I think that the average in there is somewhere around 30 to 40%, and so we are 20% above what the economic disadvantage would have been in those two school divisions.
Real quick, and I'll let the rest of them ask. I'm just trying to go ahead and get some out
Right.
of the way, maybe save some time. What you of course, I think your first superintendent position was in Colorado.
Yes, sir, it
So
was.
you enjoyed the scenery.
Mhm,
and
we
the
did.
mountains. And what was your, obviously coming home to Virginia was a good thing. What was the reasoning from leaving Wise, Virginia to Whitfield? Was it just a step up, or?
Well, every time that we've left, I think I have left on real good terms with my board, and certainly I think that there have been some background checks on that to find out. But when we left Montgomery County to go to Colorado, it was a situation there that we really enjoyed the mountains, and we enjoyed the fishing and the hiking and all the outdoor activities associated with that. So when we went to Colorado, we knew that we were going to be out there for about 7 years, because that's what the amount that you could buy back in the retirement system in Virginia. So we went out to Colorado. And then I came back to Virginia because my mom had had a stroke, and the family needed a little bit of help. And then also had a grandchild that was born, and so you want to get closer back to that. And so we came back. And then in Virginia, when I got there, Wise County, we consolidated 6 high schools down into 3 high schools. We led a pretty successful building program. We built 2 brand-new schools. We renovated another one. We constructed a $3.5 million stadium and did some other things there and made a lot of academic success. And with that, we kind of felt like we had done what we could do there and had a lot of success there, and was happy with what we had done. And then Whitfield was just I felt like it was promotion, and felt like it was step up and another challenge. Because with that particular school division, they were struggling academically, and they were not where they needed to be, that they were at one point in time ranked about 118 out of 132. But I knew that particular area had a lot of potential, and so I went there. And then we, again, had that academic success. And then it was a situation that this year is my 32nd year, and so I'm eligible to retire there from Virginia, and our thoughts were always to move back to Tennessee and continue working for an extended period of time, because we own a house in Tennessee. We own a house in Kingsport in that particular area. And so at this time, our house sold in Whitfield that we had, and we had it on the market, and we thought that it would take several months to sell that, and it sold almost immediately. In the meantime, we were actually looking at land here in Hamlin County to build a home. And as we were looking at that, coming back from Colorado on a hunting trip, actually the superintendent piece came open, and it just seemed like it was a sign in terms of applying for this particular job, and I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity. So as I leave Wythe County, I think that my board is very happy with me, and I'm very happy with my board. I work with a wonderful group of principals. We have 13 principals in Wythe County, and they're just super. I couldn't say enough good about them. The folks that I work with at the central office are just incredibly dedicated and quality folks. And again, my board is great. So there's nothing that's pushing me out of Wythe County. There's just simply some external factors pulling me.
Well, thank you for that. I figured that'd be good for everybody. Here, you need, okay, he can't see.
Well, I can let you borrow my glasses if you need them. I understand that.
Well, hang on. Mr. Green said we could proceed. So
Okay.
we're gonna go ahead with, Mr. Kinder, the vice chair.
Mr. Perry, thank you for being here today. Thank you for thinking enough of Hamilton County to apply for the superintendent's job or the director's job. Let me ask you, think of a problem that was brought to you recently. What was the problem and how did you handle it?
Of course, as superintendent, you always have a number of problems and issues. And one of the primary things that we have is always with the budget piece, about that you never have enough money. And so as we began to do that, we had a group of students that when I arrived in Wythe County that we had over 70 students that had 5 or less credits, and they were 17 years old. So as you know, if you've got that kind of situation, you're not going to have those particular students graduate, because as soon as they turn 18, they're going to drop out, and then you actually take a hit on that in terms of the accreditation process. And so we began to look for a situation about how do you resolve that, and with limited kind of money, that's difficult to do. But we created a New Horizons Academy, which is actually an alternative school, and with that, we took 4 of our very best teachers that we knew would work well with at-risk students. We put those individuals in a building, and then we went through a selection process, and we were able to get those students into that new academy. And then with that, we were able to recover a lot of those students. We actually graduated 18 students last year. We had 100% of the students that took the Standards of Learning writing test a couple weeks ago. All of those students passed the writing test, and they had never passed a state test before. So with that, we worked with the principals about what they would be willing to give up to end up being able to produce this academy. And so we effectively worked with the Board of Supervisors, which is our county revenue agent. And then we were able to create that, and really, these students now have, their attendance rates have increased, their academic performance have increased, and we've been able to have those students be successful.
Tell us about the most important decision you made recently and explain how you involved the people who would be affected by the decision.
I think one of the most important decisions that we've made is terms of raising expectations. That when we first came to Wythe County, we really didn't feel like the academic expectations were where they needed to be. And so as we began to do that, we set those academic expectations. This is what we need to happen for us to be a top-rated school. And so as we did that, then we began to work with principals to make sure that they had the necessary skills and necessary resources to achieve that. We also began to work with the teachers to make sure that they felt comfortable that we could help them reach those particular academic expectations. And then we actually just poured a lot of time and money into the instructional program and curriculum to make sure all that worked.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
That'd be all for the time being.
Okay, Dr. Asadian?
Again, thank you for coming here. I know we are blessed to have you here, and coming from a very good school, Virginia Tech. As a former graduate, yes, absolutely, fantastic. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I heard you speak about it. So you've done 32 years in Virginia. So you were in the you're eligible to go to retirement. What are you looking at from here on out? How many years do you think you want to continue on doing this? Because obviously we look at it in the long term.
Certainly.
We want a relationship with somebody is willing to come and work with us. We don't want a 1 year, 2 year plan. So.
I can tell you right now that I'm in fairly good health right now, and life is good for me, and I still love this job. This is a job, and my wife would verify to this, is that I don't have to go to work each morning, I get to go to work. That I love this, and I love working, and so for me, I've got another decade of work, and so this is not something that I have any intentions at all of quitting, is that I could have stayed in Virginia and continued to work. It's just the financial benefits are better. And then also, we had a situation to where with the house selling and all that, then we had to make a decision if we're going to buy another house in Wythe County, because I firmly believe if you're going to be a superintendent, you got to pay taxes there, you got to live there, you got to be there, you got to shop there, you got to be a member of the community. And so we had to make a decision. Are we going to buy another home, or are we going to then take this opportunity and move? And so when this particular job came open, then that was an opportunity. So for me, this is not a piece to where I'm looking for 1 or 2 years, and it's not a piece to where I'm looking to just sit around and bide my time. It's a piece to where I'm looking for the next school division that we can get in with, that we can help provide some of that academic focus and improve on some areas. There's already a lot of good things happening here. What can we do better? And I've always been a firm believer that you don't have to be sick to get better. And so with that, we'll do what we can do to go ahead and make the school division better and create that focus and help folks. So it's not a piece that I'm looking to come in and get out. It would be a place I'm looking to settle, be a part of the community, build a home, and then be a big part of the community, not only in the school, but also in the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tell us about your experience in developing a long-range plan for a school system.
I think that is critical, and that's the very first thing that I think that we'd need to do as a board. And what we do with that in Virginia, it is called a 6-year plan. And what we do with the 6-year plan is that we sit down with the board and we begin to ask them, where do you want to be next year and where do you want to be in 6 years? And prior to that, we actually have a series of things that we call listening tours. And so the central office staff, all my directors, we would go to each school and we sit down with each school and we give them an opportunity. What's working well in this division, what's not working well in this district, and what can we do better to help you? And so at each one of those schools, we get their input. And then we take all of those 13 schools that we get, and then we come back to the board, and this is what we're doing actually next month, is that we will sit down with the board and say, okay, these are the things that our teachers and staff, this is what they love about this division. These are the things they wish we could change. And this is where they want to be in the next little bit. And so with all those thoughts, then we go on a retreat. We sit down with the board and we say, what can we do? Because there's some of the things that they do that's probably cost prohibitive. And so we have to make some decisions about that. But as we begin to formulate that 6-year plan, then we really talk to folks about this is not a plan that we're going to put on a shelf. This is a plan that's going to guide our focus. It's going to be the piece that we develop our budget around, and it's going to be the document that actually creates our roadmap of where we want to be. So one of the main problems that we had in Wythe County prior to me coming there was that every new thing that came around, they jumped on. And so you had one program and you did it for a year, another program come in and you kind of banded that and you did another one. And so it was just this constant jumping on what was the newest and the most shiniest. And we've really got our board now to resist doing that, is that this is our plan. Now, in addition to that, I told you that we went around and got feedback from the teachers. We also had a series of community forums. We also received feedback from the business community and also from parents. And we have what is called a Superintendent's Advisory Council. And I meet in the morning, and this is once a month. I meet with students, and then I meet with a group of teachers, and I meet with a group of parents. And so with that, we all use that to solicit feedback. All comes into the 6-year plan. And then we use that 6-year plan to create those long-term goals, because I think we always overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 6 years. And so it's critical to have some of those short-term goals, but then I have those long-term goals of knowing where we want to be.
Actually, it's interesting because I asked this question from 2 days ago, and I'm gonna ask you the same thing. And you basically went to the same thing. I wanna know if we could expect a 5-year or 6-year for you to tell me exactly, can we come every year? And for you to tell me, hey, this is what we've met, this is the milestones that we're hitting and everything. But it's exactly what you described to me, which is what I want, I think that's the important thing. But do you have thick skin to tolerate criticisms, and how does that work for you?
For me, now, the other part that I failed to mention with that, the 6-year plan is what I asked the school board to evaluate me on. So if you come up with those 6-year plans and you say, this is where we want to be, that's what I should be doing. And so at the end of each year, I give the board a document, and it's everything that we have done on each one of those components of 6 years. Now, we divide ours up into 7 different components, one of those components being academic achievement, one being professionalism, one being communication. So there's a couple different pieces, and within that, we ask the board, where do you want to be in each one of those? And at the end of the year, as we do my evaluation, if this is what we say we want to do, this is how I should be evaluated, because this is where you want us to be. And so everything that we do should flow back through that 6-year plan. And so with that, the tough skin part, we do that every day. So no matter what the decision is that there's a certain group of people that always think we're wrong, and a certain group of people that are always applauding. But with that, we do try to solicit the input that we can. But with the board, in terms of that, we want suggestions and feedback. And if we're not doing those kind of things, I feel like you need to provide direction. Because again, statutorily, I think it's pretty similar to Virginia, as you make policy and that you hire and fire the superintendent. And that's one of the pieces that you should do, is that I'm charged with operating the daily operations of the school. And then if we've got that 6-year plan, that tells us what we should be doing, and that's what I should be evaluated on.
Dr. Gibson, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I didn't thank you at the initial opening that you changed your schedule for us, and I appreciate that.
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity. I think that any time that an individual is in this position, it's a great opportunity, a great honor, because I never forget that I'm a boy from Birchfield that didn't have very much, and so I always, anytime I have this kind of opportunity, I appreciate that.
Involved, and I appreciate it. How do you obtain the support for the board, staff, community in the development and implementation of this 6-year plan?
I think what you have to do there first, you have to have a good plan, because if you don't have a good plan, it's just not good anyway. Because I think the worst thing that you can have when you're headed in the wrong direction is hope. So if you don't have a good plan to begin with, I think it's destroyed from the very beginning. And so when you organize well and you get that feedback from staff, from community, from business leaders, when you get that, then you've already got some investment among your stakeholders about where they want to be. And so I think they're more willing to buy into that. And then I think the second piece to that is it's getting that unified message. This is what we're about in Hamilton County. This is what we're going to do. This is the direction that we're going. And then when people ask you that, everybody from the teachers to the custodians to the principals to the business leaders, this is what the mission and this is what the focus for the county is. And so as you do that, and as you develop your budget around that, instead of doing a lot of different things poorly, you do a lot, or you do a few things and you do them well. And so as we do that, I think the focus helps with that. And when you have that unified message, you can sell a message, a good message, a lot more effectively than you can that's not organized.
What do you think of our mission statement? The one
You know,
we have right now.
There's a big difference for me. In a mission statement, I'm not sure that a mission statement, that flowery part, is that important. I actually think a mission statement is part that's good to have, but I think that those objectives, what do you want to do? Because I would assume that the mission statement says something to the effect of that all students are going to learn, they're going to be successful, and everybody says that. But if you look at the academic achievement, very few people do that. A lot of people struggle academically. So the key to that is break that mission statement down to actual plans and objectives and strategies that actually get students to read, to write, and to be able to do math and to be ready for post-secondary opportunities. And so, for me, I kind of move beyond that piece sometimes and actually get down, okay, now what does that actually mean? Because we got to do some work tomorrow. And with that work, we got to have more direction than a well-worded mission statement.
Right. Less subjective, more objective.
Exactly.
Okay. Carolyn Clausen, please.
Dr. Perry, thank you so much for choosing to come to our community to interview. I think that you'll find the people here to be very warm and encouraging, and that's the reason that most of us return here to fulfill our professional obligations as adults. The first question I have is in regard to your public speaking. To what group and on what subject did you give your last speech, and what point were you trying to make in that speech?
Actually, I have presented in over 20 different states. So I've done some motivational pieces. Most of my work's been in brain-based learning and how to improve student achievement. And I've also done a lot of work with at-risk learners about how that you could overcome some of those obstacles to be successful. I'm also the chairman of Region 7, which is all the superintendents in those 19 school divisions in Virginia. And so the last speech that I gave was 2 nights ago. And in that, we had over 60 school divisions. That's on the small rural school division, about attempting to convince those school divisions that we had to come together, that we had to create a coalition, and that we had to come up with a single legislative agenda that had budget priorities and legislative priorities to be able to send to Richmond to promote our cause. And so if you can think about trying to get 60 different school divisions or 60 different divisions here in Tennessee to come together and say, okay, we agree on these 4 things, that's a pretty daunting task. But we were able to actually convince those individuals to come together, to develop this legislative priority, and then to move forward. And so we're actually in the process right now of getting individuals to sign some resolutions to move forward on that and feel pretty successful with that.
Does your state association, your state school boards association work with you in developing the legislative agenda?
You know, they do. The problem that we have, and it may be a similar problem here, oftentimes our needs are not really well represented by the state organizations because the state organizations are overpowered by some of those larger school divisions. And so in the state of Virginia, actually, the way that the funding formula is done, there is it's in direct conflict. If you are wealthy and affluent, you want it funded another way. If you're more poor and rural, you want it funded another way. So our state organization, the Virginia Association of School Superintendents, and also the Virginia Association of School Boards, they tend to go more with those larger school divisions who have more clout, more power, and more financial resources. So basically what we decided is we're still parts of those organizations because they are doing some things to increase funding and to provide advocacy for school divisions. But we also found out that we have very different needs and very specific needs. So we had to not break away, so because we're still part of those, but we also had to set up our own advocacy group to promote our interests.
Here as well, because there have been some issues that came forward that this board's actually taken on, and when it has been taken to the other districts, they've actually signed on to some proclamations and so forth.
And we're trying to do that in a formal kind of way because last year we actually had this in a little bit of an informal way. And for the first time, we were invited to Richmond, and we actually got to speak to the Speaker of the House, the Senate and House Appropriation Chairs, and then also the chairmen of the educational committees with all their members there. So when we were invited into there, we actually had some influence on some legislative pieces and on some budget pieces that went through.
So have you had any experience on the federal level?
Not on the federal level, no, we are not really invited to Washington DC at this point in time, but
Well,
probably
it
not,
Sounds
but
like he's got some very good ideas that might need to be taken there. Have you written any articles or publications?
yes, ma'am. Actually, we've written a couple things on the brain-based learning piece. And then we do publish a bi-monthly article for the local newspaper. So in that, we have an article called School Matters. And so in that, we, twice a month, we end up publishing an article about these are the things that we're doing in the school division. And in order to keep things open, transparent, and honest, we put things in there. I also do a bi-monthly radio announcement too. So the radio station allows me to come in and we talk about what's happening in the school division. And then we also do some writing for the Virginia Association of School Superintendents about doing some things there where we have spoken in front of the state school board on several occasions on discipline, on finance, on several of the regulations they have on seclusion and restraint and some other pieces, so.
We actually have a couple of students, one from each high school, that do a weekly article.
Okay.
That's a very informative piece, so I think that's a great idea. Tell us how you've been successful in building a support, both parental and community-wide, for a school district.
I think the thing that we have to realize, and the very fundamental part of that, is that we have to realize that we exist to serve the community. That I think a lot of times we have forgotten that we have clients, and those clients are our parents and our community members. They're the ones that provide the financial resources for us to be successful. And so I think one of the first things that you have to do is you have to have a good school system. People are always more supportive if you're successful. And so being that, and then I think the second part is being visible. So I think in terms of being out in the community, being visible at athletic events, at band festivals, at different kind of things, you need to be visible. And you also need to be an active member. You got to make sure that you put back into the well, that you can't just draw water out without putting something back in. And so I think as superintendent, you are the face of the school district and you are the head person with that. And so you've got to be out in the community often. And you've got to set good role models, and you have to have that honesty, integrity, and some of those personal characteristics that would make you that person that could speak well for the district. So I think having a good, clear message, too, is incredibly important about this is what our school district is about. This is what we hope to accomplish. And with that, I think if you've done it correctly, then you've got the culture of the community incorporated into those plans. You've got the needs of the community incorporated into those plans. And so if you've done that, then it's a lot easier to get people on board if they already believe what you're doing is going to help them and going to benefit them.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Green?
You pretty much answered my first question, so let's move on to the second.
Okay. Yeah, the funding body, mayor is right behind you.
Okay, good deal. Okay.
How would you,
The two mayors, that's right.
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
county.
the county, that's right.
how would you communicate with the board between regular meetings?
Well, that is something that I feel is one of my primary jobs, is keeping the board informed is a critical piece. And what I do is almost every day, I text the board something that's going on in the school division. And just for example, the other morning, we did have a bus breakdown, and it had a turbo on it, and the turbo burned up, and of course, it looked like it was on fire because the smoke was coming out. Well, we heard that a 911 call went in from a neighbor that saw that and said the bus was on fire and the kids, were in danger. Of course, we knew that was not the case, and I knew that board members would get that call, and so we send out a text saying, this is what happened, no kid was on the bus, that everybody was safe, and that we just had a part of the engine failed. So with that, when you're out in the store and then you get a parent come to you and say, well, I heard a bus blew up this morning, and hurt a bunch of students, you know the facts behind that. So it's a daily situation with the text. And then every Friday, I have what's called the Friday update. So I will email you everything that happened that week. And then also the things that are happening next week, so that you kind of have an idea of what's happening. So if it's important, we try to put it in that particular email on that Friday update. Then what I do with the board packet is that I send an electronic form of the board packet. We have a meeting on Thursday. And so that Friday before the Thursday, I send you out that board packet. And in that board packet, it tells you everything that we're going to talk about. Now, in Virginia, we can meet with 2 board members at a time without constituting a meeting. So on Monday before that Friday, I sit down with board members and we go through the board packet and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. So is there problems? Are there issues? Is there any questions that you may have? And then a lot of times we're able to resolve any issues during that particular time there. And then, of course, we have a regular meeting. Now, we've also established a concept or a philosophy of no surprises. And so in a board meeting, I try never to give you anything that's a surprise to you, and then we hope it's reciprocal. But the other part to that too is that anything before it becomes an action item has to be discussed the month prior as a discussion item. Now, if I'm not sure if we have work sessions here or not, sometimes the work session can take care of that piece. But if we don't have that, I still like to give you a month to kind of think about things, especially big things that we're talking about with budgets and insurances and curriculum issues. And so you need to have a period of time to think about that and talk to folks about it and get some different inputs on it, because we don't want you making decisions without you being fully educated and fully informed. And so do a lot of things that way, and just informally too, talking with board members about issues that they may have. But communication is a piece that we work extremely hard to make sure board members are educated.
As a director, are you heavily involved in the financial aspect of your budget, making sure that, we're in balance and shortcomings or whatever it may be, dealing with that?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that most people are that pleased with you when you get to the end of school and you don't have enough money to make payroll. So the budget piece is always something that's incredibly important. And so we will always maintain a close eye on the budget and the financial pieces. And what we can do is that we do provide a state of the school division or a state of the district report. So what we can do in January when we go on a retreat, that's part of what I do, is that this is what we budgeted for personnel. We're halfway through the school year, and so this is the percentage that we spent. This is what we've done with staff development. This is what we've done for conferencing, all those kind of things. So then if there are problems, you can just see it real quick, percentage-wise, that we're in trouble here, or this piece, we've got a little bit more money in this category. So, but with the county mayor behind me, we never have enough money, and so we're always needing some more, so.
What is the total budget for your county?
We have about 50 million, about 45 million. And that does not include capital. So we have debt service in Virginia that's excluded from the operational budget, so.
What percentage of that total budget is state, federal, and local?
We have something that's called the local composite index, and your ability to pay local is what is called the local required effort. And so with that, we pay about 31% or so at the local level, and then we get about 6-7% from the federal level, and the remainder is state. Even though over the last couple of years, our contribution has went up almost 10% that we've got to provide at the local level.
What is your, you mind me asking another question? Do you understand how Tennessee works with, and the VEP?
I'm not exactly sure about that, but I think,
Basic education plan,
yeah,
basically you're working off last year's numbers.
yeah, we understand that, and Colorado was very similar to that, even though we had taxing authority in Colorado. We're one of the few states that actually don't have taxing authority. I think there's only about 5 left that doesn't give school divisions the ability to tax. But a lot of that is the same kind of process. I realize, of course, that we've got an excellent finance person here, and that would be one of the areas that I'd have have to study it and become more familiar with. But the process is pretty similar all the way through.
Tracy, you think you could teach him?
I hope that was a yes. I didn't really hear that, but,
She said she didn't know if you could handle it.
okay, good deal, good deal.
You was a little iffy.
Okay. Well, it's a good judgment call, so right there.
She's a little bit on the quiet side,
Okay, all right, good deal.
but very, very good and very smart. All right, Roger, you done? All right, Janice, on.
That's Mr. Reed's.
Oh, did I skip somebody?
Mr. Reed's.
I apologize, the page is stuck together. I'm sorry. Your Highness, Jim Grigsby. You're up.
I'm gonna deviate just a little bit. You said you've had a chance to briefly look over our successes and what we've been able to accomplish. It may be a little bit of an unfair question, but if you were to take a snapshot of Hamilton County's academic right now, what do you see? And number two is, where may there be some weaknesses that you could help us in?
I think that the first thing I'd like to do, and again, this is, I think, a piece that is critical, is that we need to sit down with the central office staff, and we need to sit down with the building level administration, and we need to understand, the true nature, because you can look at some numbers, and sometimes the numbers tell you, and then sometimes the numbers are not really accurate. But I do think that there are some opportunities for us to be more successful in certain areas. And again, I think sometimes we may have created, and all of us have got to own up to some of the responsibility of that, from the board to the superintendent, to the central office, to the principals, to the teachers. And I think any time that we begin to say, you're not doing a good job, that's the first mistake that we make, because we're not doing a good job. And so with that, I think that clearly we could probably do some better work in our early grades, maybe, or doing some better work on some of those foundation things with some of the reading. Now, I know that we have a significant portion of our population that may have English as a second language, and some of those may or may not be transitory. I'm not sure exactly the numbers associated with that. But that would be an issue that we would clearly have to look at, is building some of those foundational pieces of literacy, writing, and the reading part in that. We have a lot of success in a lot of areas. I just think that we can build upon those successes. But I do think one of the things that we've got to do is make sure that the board comes up with a good, strong focus, because you can't tell people, I want you to do everything well the first year. You got to say, what is it that we want to do well, and let's build upon successes and go that particular direction. So if I were given the opportunity to be superintendent here, the first thing that we'd need to sit down is, where do you want to be? And then get teachers and students in with that. And for me, it's always about aligning the curriculum. Once you find out where you want to be, let's align the curriculum to get there, and let's adjust our instructional priorities to get there. But now the other part to that too is that if you tell folks you want them to be here, but you're spending all of your money here, then that's a disconnect. And so again, I think that's where that 6-year plan will help us, that if we want to be here, then our resources and our materials and our money and our energy should be going to those particular places. So
Give us an example of when you changed your mind on an issue, you've taken a different course of action as a result of listening to others.
we were, every Monday, we meet with our directors, and we have what is called a huddle. And so each Monday, we just stand and talk in the office. Are there anything major that's going on? But then on every other Monday, we actually sit down with the leadership team, which is all my directors. So Director of Federal Programs, Director of Elementary, Director of Secondary, those folks. We sit down and I tell them, this is what I'm doing, and then everybody gets an opportunity, this is what we're doing. And so in that, anytime that I have anything, I present that to the group. And then the group looks at those things, and then they say, this is a great idea, or maybe this is not such a great situation. And so during that point in time, we make adjustments to what we're planning on doing with that. So there's been many times where I've shared that information with them, and I've got enough faith and I've got enough belief in them that if they tell me this is not going to be the right way to go, then we go with that particular piece. Now, I am the one with the final decision, and I've got to do that, but I'm very collaborative in nature with that in terms of inviting people to be in on the decision-making process, because again, if you don't have that ownership, it's probably not going to be well implemented.
The other question you've already answered from someone else is just in how you involve students and parents in the community. And I think you have those groups that you meet with occasionally.
We do. Now, to let you know on another piece too, is that our board, we actually meet in the morning one month, and then we meet in the afternoon another month, because we've got parents working both shifts. And so you may want to have individuals be able to come in the morning. On the evening meetings, we meet at 5 o'clock, and what we've had is a community forum. So if you want to come in at 4 o'clock, we'll be there for you, and you can come in and you can talk to us, because in a board meeting sometimes, and again, I don't know how it is here, but in Virginia, it's just public comment. So you can't interact with the board. You just come in and you make comments, and then you don't get questions answered. And for some folks, that can be a frustrating piece. So what I tell them, and also to help the board, is come in at 4 o'clock. So if you have a question about why we did something, I'll sit down with you and we'll talk. So we're in a very informal situation. We're there to talk to folks and to do that. And then we have probably 2 or 3 community forums a year that just come in, talk to us about what's going on. If there's something that's a problem and that's an issue, we'll be more than glad to talk to you and help you with that.
Are those well attended?
No, they're not.
But it just gives them an opportunity to.
It does give them an opportunity, and the good thing for a board member, I think, is that when people fuss at you for doing something, you can say, that would be a great opportunity to come on our pre-board meeting time and talk to the superintendent, because he'd love to hear from you. And it does give us that kind of opportunity, and we have had some that have come and they have been extremely angry or frustrated over something, and then once they hear why we've done something, or just simply when they've had the opportunity to express their frustration, then we're able to calm them down and talk to them about this is why we do that. So, but I do believe the opportunity kind of keeps some folks from coming. Now, we did have one that was recently well attended, and I think we were able to really get, a lot of things resolved in that, so.
Okay. That's all for right now.
On those student and parent and those advisory councils, I guess you would call them, Dr. Lees did something similar. How do you select those students and parents? That's always an issue.
It is, and what we do with that is the principal selects the students. So we have a male and female, and we have a junior and senior from each one of our high schools, and then we have one from New Horizons, which is our alternative school, and then one from the Career and Technical Center. And so the principals select those particular students. And it is not based on academics, and it's not based on athletics or anything of that nature. The directions we give the principal is that we want a student that would add value to this particular organization or this particular group. With the teachers, again, the principals are given the opportunity to select the teacher that they want to represent their school. And again, it's the same thing about who do you want to represent your school. Now, along with that, we don't really have binding arbitration or collective bargaining in Virginia, but we do have teacher organizations and associations. And so we actually allow that group, they present also a person to sit on the group too, and then that's chosen by their association. And we have 2 groups, basically. We have the Virginia Educational Association and the professionals educators. And so both of those can attend if they would want. And then with the parents, again, the principals provide us a name, and we have the 13 parents that come, well, actually 14 with New Horizons.
Thank you. Janice? Ms. Hall?
He's probably answered most of my questions too, but one of them was, what are your major accomplishments? Which accomplishment are you the most proud of?
Besides my granddaughter?
Besides your
Okay.
granddaughter, your wife.
Professional.
Yeah, okay, all right. I do think that probably I'm extremely proud of the building programs that we were able to do. You know, we were able to build, I have been able to build 4 schools in my career. And it is something neat to be able to build a building and be part of that you know is going to outlive you. There's just something about that that gives you a good feeling. But I think probably the most important thing is some of the academic success that we've had. Because if you look at that, some people will see that we've increased student achievement by 20% or 30%, and all that feels good. But the thing that I feel good about is that 20%, I can name you the students in that 20% that were not going to be successful, and they had no hope of being successful. And I can say that 20% means Johnny and Timmy and Alex and Mary. And so when you see that, then you see some students that are able to actually be successful who in the past were kind of being left alone. I'm also real proud of our alternative school that we created. We built a program that actually gave kids that had very little chance a chance. And now we actually had a grandmother come in over the summer. Had a young girl that actually had attempted to commit suicide when she was in the 9th grade, and she was a mess. And we got her in there when she was in the 11th grade. And actually she graduated and she's going to college. She actually applied and went to college this summer. And grandmother just came in and said that we'd saved her life, and literally had done that. And so that particular program, was a good feeling there too, about creating something to where some of these students who had very little hope now were able to have a good shot at life.